time to visit another one of our onX Offroad Build Challenge competitors, and today we're in East Tennessee visiting with the Bleepin Jeep crew of Matt and Josh. The Bleepin Jeep YouTube channel focuses on building serious off-road vehicles that can tackle some of the toughest terrain around, all while focusing on a budget-minded project approach, using used parts and only spending money when you have to. Matt's known as the XJ guy, so for this year's challenge, I knew he was going to show up to our stock vehicle competition with an XJ. What I didn't expect was that it was going to be a Jaguar XJ-S.
So under the bonnet of this fine specimen is a 4.2 liter aluminum headed inline 6, and she purrs like a kitten, and she's nice and comfortable to boot.
I was chuffed to find such a good deal on this vehicle, only 1,000 quid. But we're gonna stick with the Cherokee theme, so we've got an XJ, we've got a straight 6.
The hardest part of turning this XJ into a real XJ is probably not going to be the execution, it's going to be the planning. It's going to be figuring out and sketching down on paper exactly how we're going to do this.
And just as you'd expect, if you bring a car to an off-road vehicle competition, it's going to perform incredibly bad.
The stock competition was completely silly with the Jaguar. We knew that it wasn't going to do well. We were coming in as the underdogs once again.
So when we were doing the tug of war, we knew we weren't going to be able to pull anybody. The Jag just wasn't going to do anything. So we thought, okay, this car's pretty heavy. If we just bury it and sit here,
working like a charm.
We got nothing else to do. We might as well just jump out and have some tea.
We totally could have went out and bought something like a Jeep Cherokee that was completely capable of all those obstacles, but what fun would that be? We wanted to challenge ourselves and make something super interesting.
Woo! Tea time!
Last year, Team Bleepin Jeep took the win in the onX Offroad Build Challenge after putting together a great little S10 pickup using the Bleepin Jeep mantra of simple, cheap, and functional.
Last year, Bleepin Jeep built an S10, and we actually won the competition last year. It was a really cool rig, very small, very lightweight. But this year, we're gonna go all out. We're gonna build something big, something heavy, and I wanna build it in a way that's gonna dominate the competition.
Dominating the competition is going to be a little bit more difficult this year. Matt is facing 6 other teams who are all gathering votes right now online at onxoffroad.com. Then all those teams are going to participate in a multi-day trip through the Southwest, with a final destination being the annual SEMA show, where all the vehicles will be on display for the public to vote on at this year's event.
So for our build, we chose a 1985 Jaguar XJ-S, but a lot of people didn't know this. I actually bought a Dodge W250 Cummins diesel truck first, before the Jag. So the first thing we did is brought the Jag into the shop here, and we stripped everything out of it that we're not going to need. So we've completely got the Dodge stripped down to the bare minimum. And while we're here today, what I plan to do is try to get that thing situated where we can lower the Jag down on top of the motor and see where everything's gonna fit. Josh in the shop is really great at doing the mechanics. He's a great mechanic. He's good at electronics. I, on the other hand, am more interested in the fabrication, the welding, the grinding, the cutting.
We had a decent idea of kind of what we wanted to do going into it, but everything's fluid, and it's still fluid. So when we were realizing how much it was going to cost to build these axles, we started looking online, and we found this Toyota, and it has Dana 60s front and rear.
A lot of people, whenever they watch my videos, I tell them the cheapest way to build a rock crawler is to buy somebody else's, and that's what we've done.
Look at this thing.
Isn't this thing cool?
This is like
It's got full hydro. It's got bead locks.
bead locks.
It's got the locking hubs already that we need. It's got
And what
gears.
lockers? Like a mechanical locker in the
I
front?
think it's got a Detroit up front and spool in the back, if I remember correctly. It's got the fuel cell, 2 batteries, a box, mufflers. It's got built heavy-duty drive shafts. It's a high-speed HS 9500 Warren winch.
Oh,
And it
I
is.
never even knew that was a thing.
It is fast.
Is it fast?
Yeah. So if people didn't hate me enough for tearing apart a first-gen Dodge and a classic Jaguar, we're gonna throw one more vehicle into the mix, and that is a Toyota. It's got a lot of the parts that we need to complete this build, so we're gonna take 3 vehicles and make it into one.
We're gonna take what's left of the body of that Jaguar, and we're gonna set it down, hopefully, on this frame here from this Dodge, and then we're gonna pull everything off the bottom of that Toyota and bolt it up under the frame.
So we're setting the body down over the top of the motor, and we're looking at our clearance issues. We knew there was going to be some, but we didn't know what was going to hit. And then we're looking at where the suspension is. The front tire is too far back. We know that's going to have to move forward. So we're thinking about whether we should move the whole frame forward and the motor back, or should we just move the axle forward and try to clearance for the frame, which is going to be easier. We don't know quite yet.
Budget-wise, we're kind of bouncing off the top end. We're bouncing off the roof of the budget, and that's why we're making changes to things as we go. We have basically everything we need, except for there's going to be a lot of little things, and that's where it gets expensive, is in the little things that add up in the end.
So what we want to do is bring this Jag as far down as possible so it doesn't look weird. We don't want the end product to look like we just sat a Jag on top of a Dodge. So we need to mate them as close as possible. But it looks like we're gonna have to do some cutting, maybe even section out the frame here and move this up, because you can see how this comes way down. And at this point, you're gonna be able to see a big gap right between here, about 6 inches or so, unless we fix that somehow. So we're gonna have to whoosh, that's all this is gonna have to be cut out. I've never had a serious rock crawler with a manual transmission, and obviously never had a diesel rock crawler. So we're just trying to challenge ourselves basically to see if we can do it. A lot of people say that this is the holy grail of Dodge trucks and that I am stupid to tear one up. But from what I understand, the 12 valves are the best. I mean, you can run them on one wire. They'll keep running no matter what, upside down, right side up. I just think 12 valve is gonna be where it's at.
I'm kind of excited for the making it run part, getting everything wired in and getting all the little goodies working, making it as creature comfort as possible.
So we're here in Caryville, Tennessee, and we're about to hit the Sand Mines Trail. It's cool that Ian also lives in Tennessee, so he was able to bring his Jeep down. We're gonna start tracking this trail. It is not completely mapped on the onX app, so I make sure to use this so that I don't get off track here. And there's one point where we wanna make sure that we go right, not left, like I did last time, so we don't get lost.
We're out here, we're gonna run a trail. It's called the Sand Mines Trail. Now, I have never been on this trail before, but I've always wanted to run it. I've watched a bunch of guys out doing YouTube videos on there, so I think it's super cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fire up the onX Offroad app and I'm gonna use the Go and Track feature. That way, if I ever wanna run this again with other friends, I won't get lost when I'm in the woods, because Matt says you can get lost in there. One other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a picture of this gas station, because this is some tribal knowledge that Matt shared with me. If you fill up your truck here at that gas station, they'll let you park your tow rig in the parking lot. And that would be good to know for anybody who wants to run this trail in the future. So I'm gonna take a picture of the gas station so they know where it's at, and then I'll create the route in onX, and I can share it with all my friends.
So if you have a good mapping system, you can actually go from the parking lot at Windrock all the way to here, up to the sand mines, out through the other side without ever touching pavement. Out here in the southeast, this is rock bouncer territory. What we have is a lot of rocks, a lot of mud, a lot of very steep terrain, and it's completely different than out west. So some of my favorite places to go are Windrock, the Sand Mines, AOP. These are all private parks, privately owned parks, but they're really great. And the terrain is just a lot of vegetation, a lot of mud, a lot of rocks, and a lot of horsepower is required to get through this stuff. This is the gatekeeper for the sand mines, and if you can't make this hill, you shouldn't be up here. So I guess we should turn around right now. No, but what people don't understand about East Tennessee is it is a rainforest. There's only one dry month out of the entire year, and that's in October. And every time other than that, it's always muddy, it's always slick, and a lot of times you have to use horsepower. So you can't crawl it like you do anywhere else in the country. You just have to send it, and the mud and the rocks are gonna tell you where it's gonna place you. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it up the hill this time, so we had to pull out the Warn winch, which is an onX Elite partner. Instead of breaking something, we use the Warn winch and just get up this and head to the next obstacle, because there's plenty more. So this is a 1986 Jeep Comanche. So inside we've got a 5.3 LS from a 2001 Silverado. It's got leaf springs up front. In the back I've got a 4-link on Fox coilovers. This was a cheap budget build, so the idea was to build something for 15 grand. This Jeep is really great for East Tennessee. It's what I call a hill killing machine. It's got a lot of horsepower. It's got aggressive tires, and what I like about it is it's heavy in the front, light in the back. So the way I explain it is, if you can get that front end over the top of something, then the rear will follow, because there's just no weight in the back. So if you can get that front end up, which is the easy part, then usually the rear will follow. And funny story, the reason that I built this Comanche, I actually got a call from Ian Johnson a few years ago, and he said, hey, we're gonna build Comanches. A whole bunch of us guys are gonna build Comanches and wheel them in Moab. I said, sure, I'm down. headed up the trail, and not a quarter mile later, we found a downed tree. That's too big for the equipment that we have to get rid of right now, so I'm gonna mark that on the onX app, and we're gonna backtrack a little bit. I know of another passageway to get up there. And we're going to see some really neat history for one, and it's actually an old quarry where they pulled sand out. To make concrete, you need sand. So the best place, closest place to get sand, right here at the top of Sand Mountain. So this is the breaks of the operation. Up there is where they mined the sand. Yep. And then this was the cart. So the cart would go down the mountain, straight down, and it was cable operated. Right here, take a look at this. Try to spin that. Isn't that cool?
That's crazy, it's still spinning.
Some good grease in there.
You can get
That is bonkers.
With a bunch of guys, you can get it going pretty quick, but you want to watch your arms. It'll take it right off. So we'll go stop up there. There's a beautiful view.
Okay.
But that's where they would back up their dump trucks and
dump the
sand into the chute, and then the cable trolleys would be right here. Are you scared of heights?
Not really.
Okay.
But I mean, wow, look at that. This is where they backed the dump trucks up?
Yep, backed them up to right here and dumped it off there. How'd you like to be that dump truck driver? You almost impaled yourself.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And that's the chute. You see the chute?
Look at that view, Bleepy.
That's cool, huh? We're here. We made it. We're at the top of the sand mines. Here we are at the top of Sand Mountain. I was really glad that I got to take Ian on one of my favorite trails for his first time. He's never been out here, so this is a really cool, unique spot that we don't see a lot of here in East Tennessee.
After spending the day with Matt and Josh from Bleepin Jeep, here's where they are at budget-wise, and it is actually pretty frightening for me. They've basically spent $16,000 just on vehicles. They've bought 3 vehicles to try to build 1 vehicle out of. So they've started with the Jaguar, then they bought that first gen Dodge to get the Cummins engine, and then they bought this Toyota parts truck. They haven't bought any parts yet. And I think that's where it's gonna get tough for them. Remember, these are like overlanding / rock crawlering vehicles that we're asking them to build. They're gonna have to essentially live out of these vehicles for a day on the road. So they're gonna forego all those creature comforts of adding any type of basically fun things to have when you're on the trail overlanding just to get the vehicle done. They only have $4,000 left, and they're still gonna have to buy things like brake lines, possibly fuel lines, drive shafts. I'm sure there's a bunch of steel and tubing that's gonna go into this thing. There is still a lot of extra work to go into this truck to make it a functioning vehicle. Also, I think they've hit that wall of trying to put a car onto a truck chassis. It's never easy. I've done it a few times, and honestly, the best way to do it is to build a custom chassis and just transplant everything from the other vehicle into it. I think they've hit a wall, and they're trying to justify using that Dodge Ram pickup truck chassis because they spent so much money on it, where honestly, I think it would save them time and possibly a little bit of money if they just built their own ladder frame in the shop, transplant the Cummins drivetrain into it, they'd be way ahead on time, it would look a lot better, and I think it would actually function a lot better as well. Or simply take the Dodge Ram completely out of the equation and use all the parts off of the Toyota to build your off-road rig. Then you'd get a whole bunch of budget money back, you'd have extra money to spend on cool things. But who am I to criticize? That is the Comanche that Bleepin Jeep was talking about when we were on the trail. His is on the trail, and mine isn't. So maybe he'll be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat in the end, and maybe Bleepin Jeep will come up with a win again on this year's onX Build Challenge. Make sure you go and vote for who you want to win this year. We still have lots more competitors to see,